And the recent developments that has grabbed the imagination and the attention of the entire nation. Events unfolded from Saturday when 16 plus people were killed, according to the Nigerian military, the Operation Safe Haven, giving updates on that. But subsequently, attacks also were recorded on Sunday and Monday, all tag reprisal attacks. The death toll continues to rise. Over 100 people have so far been killed across Bokos and Barikin Ladi. Let's get a sense of how things are shaping up and what is being done to mitigate a further escalation of the violence on the Plateau. Join us on the program is Plateau State Commissioner for Information and Communications, Musa Ashom, is joining us on the program virtually from Jos, the Plateau State capital. Commissioner, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us on the program. I'm not sure good morning is the best way to start it, because I can imagine the somber, the sad mood across Plateau State. Let's first of all get a sense of where we are right now with regards to the figures and a situation report, whether the bleeding has been stopped. What can you tell us about the current situation?
Thank you for having me this morning. The current situation is not far from that of bleeding, that of sorrow. A sad situation indeed, very, very unfortunate. We as a people, I heard you say reprisal. There's nothing like reprisal. Our people were killed, our people were attacked, our communities were sacked, about 23 of them. We didn't kill anybody, so there was no reprisal. I think that should be corrected. And, Christmas to us is a very big celebration. So they targeted when people...
Yeah.
From one village to another.
If you can hear me, we just...
So it is not a reprisal.
Go ahead. We can hear you now.
So it is not a reprisal attack in any way. And as of yesterday, we had recorded over 146 people who have died. And you could see children that are 3 months, 8 months, elderly persons that are in their 80s were sliced by this daredevil ragtag army. And it would interest you to know that they didn't spare anybody. Anything that had life was taken. And when they came, they were chanting. Because I engaged the people yesterday, we went for on-the-spot assessment. We were there with the secretary to the government of the state, the chief of staff, the commissioner of health, the commissioner of secondary education, and the commissioner of works. And the people told us that these people came in their numbers and they were chanting Allah Akbar, and they were shooting them and they were slicing them. In one situation in Bokos local government, a man who just left Jos not long ago because he had a fractured leg, he couldn't escape. They sliced his throat, but he used his hand to block it. So he has a cut in his hand and cut on his throat. So you begin to ask, what is this? When you slice people, majority of them have slices on their head, whether they are women, whether they are children, whether they are old women, they didn't give a heck. They were just out to make sure that they wipe these communities. So it is not a reprisal, it is genocidal, it is annihilation, it is ethnic cleansing, it is land grabbing, it is criminal. And if this thing continues to fester, these people will, when they always have a field day, they regroup and return. This is not something that is new. It has been happening year in, year out. It has been happening since 2001. So it's not fair. I think our people are even asking questions. If you allow us to face these people face to face, they cannot kill us like this. But once we are law-abiding, we should be protected. Once they break the law, they should be prosecuted. If this happens, you have a smooth environment, a clean environment, an environment that is peaceful, where everybody coexist. Right. But when people come, they kill and they get away with it, you begin to ask a lot of questions.
If I may, Honorable Commissioner, I'd like to understand what the situations in these places are. You rightly admitted that this is a crisis that has been there for over 2 decades. And the patterns are also very obvious, that around festive period, whether it is the Christian celebration or Muslim, we see things like this. And that presupposes that we should have been prepared for eventualities. I'm struggling to wrap my head around how this attack would have gone on in 22 communities, spanning over 72 hours, and we seem not to have had any kind of military response. Was it a case of a complete absence of military authorities around the entire landscape of Bokos and Barkin-Ladi local government? What exactly happened? And the distress call that the army seemed to have responded to, about 32 or 36 of them they claimed. Were there no distress calls to the governor? What kind of escalation happened, we know, within the precincts of governance to suggest that they were not getting support?
You know, it's baffling when people try to blame governors in Nigeria when there's a crisis like this. If you know the makeup of the Nigerian state, you know that the governor does not command any military. Even the controller, or what you call a state director or controller of civil defense or commandant or commissioner of police, when you call them, they must get their direction from above. Their instructions come from above. All you need to do is to give them information. And if you know how the security of this country works, there are SSS personnel in each local government that give back reports. All you need to do is to just give them information. What to do is left in their hands. Let me be honest with you, if not for the military, these people wanted to clean a lot of people. They wanted to set a new record in their barbarism. They wanted to set a new record in their killings. If not for the military intervention, we would have escalated and would have more than this. Because here you are with people who had no guns, people who are peaceful, people who are preparing to celebrate Christmas, people whose focus is just to have a good time with their families, which is a reunion season. And again, people will just come into 23 villages, I didn't even say 22. And it was with military precision. You know, it is just, the aim is just to take lives, to take lands and all of that. And you can see in some videos, those that survived are trying to pack up their goods and leave the environment. It is pathetic, it is satanic. And if it continues this way, I don't know whether there's going to be Nigeria, because Plateau is an integral part of Nigeria. It needs the protection of the state, because that is the number one responsibility of government. And that is why we are calling for state police, if it is possible, because our men are gallant. We cannot be killed like chicken all the time. We cannot be counting our losses all the time. And there are people asking, if you allow us to face these people, they cannot kill us. We are just trying to be law-abiding. And again, every day we keep on burying our people. Yesterday, while in Barkin-Ladi, the reverend that buried droves of people was on drip because he got drained. He was emotionally imbalanced. And he was just lamenting. When he speaks, he's not very, very coherent like that. So we cannot be burying our people all the time. It's unfair. It's ungodly for people to just come to our communities and to our lives.
Right. Okay. Commissioner, let's talk about the narrative, because your principal, the governor, while speaking on national television, alluded to a security fact that he said is well known. He said these terrorists, or however he categorized them, have been occupying schools in those areas for the past 5 years. And for some people, while that information might be instrumental in helping understand what the authorities have been doing or have not been doing over the years, we would like to know, what has the state government done with the little information it has been getting before now, and whether or not you've actually acted upon that information to prevent situations like this?
The information we have is in the public domain. For us on the Plateau, the governor didn't say anything new. Maybe because you don't live there, that's why it is new to you. If you go to Barkin-Ladi, if you go to Biyom, there are communities that have been taken over by assailants, and they live there. So when you kill a people and you live in their community, it is unethical. There is no convention in the world that accepts that. That is barbaric. That is an antediluvian behavior. So it is not a new thing that the governor is saying. It's something that every person in those communities know. You can send your trust reporter, if he has the nerves to enter those communities. He will bring out the same report. The media has a lot of work to do in this regard. It's just that we cannot use state power to take them away. We're a democratic government. All we need to do is to give intelligence, to give information, and we've given. The next step is not ours to take. But we can support with logistics. You know, we do not have a state police, we do not have a state army, we do not have command over any military outfits. So if you go to these places, you understand that the weather is very, very clement. You realize that their land is very, very fertile. You will know that these are the farming communities of Plateau State. We have rocky areas on the plateau. You don't hear about these things happening to them. But when you go to this environment, there is lushy, there is green, there is fertile, people want to take over, and it's not something that started today, like I told you. And if it is not stopped today, it will continue tomorrow.
Okay, yeah, Honorable Commissioner, there are questions that continue to agitate the minds of Nigerians. As we have said, these people are there, as the governor claims, so it's not like it's an attack where you're coming from some strange community, as we used to hear, carry out an attack and disappear. But there have also been accusations from the other side of the divide, and it is only fair that we bring them up. That there are claims from the headers also that they were first attacked. It does appear from the narrative we get that what each party is interested in is for the military to be on its side, you know, either for protection or cleaning out the other people. Have there been some kind of attempt, you know, to approach to look for some kind of non-kinetic solutions that allows party to coexist, you know, harmoniously, rather than what is beginning to appear like one party wanting to dominate the other in a bid to acquire land or take over a space, as the case may be.
If you want land,
the government to reach out to the other party and try to understand why some of the things that happen continue to happen.
If you want land in Banana Island or Lekki phase 1 or 2, all you need to do is to have money, then purchase. If you want to own a land in Buzape, Maitama, Asoko, or anywhere in Abuja, or in Rayfield in Jos, all you need to do is to have money and you negotiate and you get. Not mainly your religion, your ethnicity, your trade, or the things you do. So it's not like an issue of land. This land, God has given our forefathers his certificate of occupancy. So we're not contesting this land with anybody. And again, as Commissioner of Information, I did not receive any report or any intelligence that some people were killed, and that is why they went on reprisal. If they went on reprisal, let's assume, is it the 23 villages that ganged up and gathered and went and killed them, and now they are killing these 23 villages? If not because the military intervened, it would have been more than 23 villages. And it was with military precision. They came almost at the same time, shooting at anything that has life. You know, when these things happen, people like to create a political capital out of it. They try to make sure that we were killed also, so we also killed. Is it illogical? Does it make sense? I think it is wrong. In the last administration, there was a peace building agency that was created so that you have interface with communities. In our case, we're not worrying. We're not fighting anybody. We get killed. So sometimes when you say we should negotiate what? Our land or our lives? Because nobody has said, okay, this is the reason why they are killing us. Except when after killing us, people take over our land. Then it tells you that it is land grabbing naturally. Okay. And especially that they know that these are festive seasons. And you know, we've advertised that Plateau is becoming peaceful. It's like they're not comfortable with that narrative. So whenever things are going well, some people sit down to say, let's bring chaos, let's antagonize them. And they come and they kill people. And when they kill and get away, it's just like business. If it gives you profit, you reinvest. So when these people are not arrested, they come again, regroup, and they come back to kill people. It's like a game. It's like they enjoy doing it. And this cancerous and gangster behavior must be nipped in the bud.
Okay. Honorable, I get the sense that, you know, from your perspective, it's a clear-cut, simple issue. There's one aggressor and there's one victim. But over the years, we've come to understand that, you know, there are complexities to this particular situation. But sticking with what the government is doing, I want to take you up on that particular point that you just raised, the peace-building initiative of the Lalong administration, which has had some significant outcomes by perhaps normalizing relations, not completely taking out the violent conflicts, because everybody has victims that they can show as a result of the ongoing clashes in all the flashpoints across Plateau State. But we've seen an escalation, a scaling up of some of these attacks over the past 6 months, and that's when your principal took charge of Plateau State. There is a suggestion that you have completely ignored all the efforts that the Lalong administration has put in place to maintain some of those peaceful negotiations that have been reached or efforts that have been made, and going at it in a new direction, which does not seem to be working well for the people on the plateau. How do you respond to that?
That is erroneous. That is misleading. You know, even when we had the peace building agency, when you have a meeting today with all the factions or the groups that you call, the next day people get killed. So it's like the Jojo thing is not their thing. They prefer the war thing. And as a peace-loving people, we cannot take arms against the state. That will be insurrection. I will not inspire our people to take up arms against any other person, because everybody has the right to live anywhere they want in this country. But it must be done with the consent of the indigenous people. You cannot just come and take people's land. Even in those communities, there are families that have large chunk of lands. There are those that do not have. Those that do not have sometimes purchase from those who have. So when you say we jettisoned the agenda of the law administration, that is not a fact. In fact, we have adopted other means of uniting our people. It will interest you to know that we do not segregate on the plateau. Plateau men are Christians, majority. We have Muslims, we have African traditional religion. We have people that do not even adhere to these religions that I've spoken to you about. So we didn't create people, so we cannot determine what they become. We cannot determine how they serve God. We cannot determine how they interact with their creator. But as a state, we cannot vote and do things that will promote the peace and peaceful coexistence of our people. And that's what we've been doing from day one. When you said in the last 6 months, even before the governor took over office, there were attacks in his own local government of Mangu, and it was not usual. Mangu has always been peaceful, so they've added Mangu to the number of LGAs that have faced this annihilation. And you begin to ask, what is the reason behind this? Because our son have won governorship election, then you are attacking us. What are you trying to show? What are you trying to display? What force are you trying to show us you have? And like I said, 2 days ago, to inspire the military, we had a luncheon with them. On that same day, they were attacking Bokos. It's like sometimes they like a narrative that is wrong for us. You remember, I was on national TV and I said Plateau is peaceful, we're enjoying it, we thank the Lord, and Wyclef Jean is going to be on the Plateau to establish a music and movie hub that will take about 4,000 hectares of land, where young people, not minding their religious leaning, not minding their tribal leaning, will expand their minds, will discover themselves, will unbundle what they've had in the past. And lo and behold, they attack. Like I told you, they are not usually happy when we are happy. Once we are happy, they say, okay, let's come and dislodge these people. Let's come and tamper with their peace. Let's come and take over their land. It's not unfair. Yes. If it were governors, and if the governor has the power to stop this crisis, we can do it, sir. But you know, we do not, like I said, command any army or military or police or civil defense. The best we can do is to give logistics, is to give information, is to give intelligence. And we have been doing that.
Before Sunday comes in, just a yes or no. Are you saying categorically there is nothing the Plateau State government can do to stop this mayhem? Is that what you're saying?
We cannot say that. We cannot say that. We've been given the mandate of the people. We cannot say that. That would be suicidal. That would be stupid from our own end. That would be grandstanding.
There's something you can do over the past 6 months or 7 months and counting of this of the Muftuang administration. What have you done that can signpost an effort on your part to make sure that the killings stop? Because from your narrative, you're saying, listen, we don't control the military, we can't order the police, we're helpless. Because that's my understanding of your take.
If you're governor, that's the same thing that will happen to you. You cannot command the police, or you can you can ask questions. Let's not, because we're journalists or because we're commissioner of information, just say things to please the people. You understand? I am not given this job to do that. The reality is we've even trained Operation Rainbow in those communities so that you give intelligence. So if they give intelligence and you find them with ammunition, you arrest them. You say they have a illegal possession of arms because they are not the conventional military people. So the best you can do, like I said, as a governor, is to give logistics, is to give information, is to give intelligence. Outside that, you cannot do more.
I think what Abdullah is trying to say is that we can certainly do more than just logistics and intelligence. And that was why I was talking about non-kinetic approach to resolving this problem. We appear to have gone in one direction for way too long. What about political solutions that are beyond just the people that reside in the plateau? Because we are talking about something that probably we have to look for solutions from the outside to sort of arrest what's happening inside. Can you give us an insight into any kind of political solutions that the governor seems to be exploring with the person of the president, for instance, with, let's say, the Sultan of Sokoto or religious leader at a bigger level, you know, that can then cascade into peace building, you know, in this community as the case may be?
2 weeks ago, the governor was in Kaduna with the other 18 northern governors so that these issues can be resolved, so that if there are persons that need to be talked to, they will be talked to.
We seem to have some technical difficulties there with the Honorable Commissioner of Information from Plateau State. I'm sure when we resolve that, he would finish his thought on what the governor, the government of Plateau State is doing. Here is back. Honorable Commissioner, can you please finish your thoughts?
I'm on it. Yeah. And as we speak today, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Senator Kashim Shettima, is going to be in Jos to have an on-the-spot assessment of what has happened to us. So the governor has reached out. You know, it's not everything that you say in the public. There are things, some out of experience speak, some out of experience do not speak. So there are matters in security architecture, and you know that we shouldn't come on air because we want to convey, we want to get people's sympathy, or because we want to be politically right, and we begin to see them. As its government, condition that they can have, because like
I think the audio is gone again, Commissioner. Right, I think your mic is on mute. Commissioner, can you hear us?
Clearly.
I think your mic is still on mute, so perhaps. Okay, okay. Please go ahead. Finish your line of thought.
So I was saying that we've done a lot. We've consulted with a lot of persons. We've consulted with those in power. We've consulted with those in the military so that they will help us nip this behavior in the bud, because there are things that we cannot do on. And that is what we've been. Continue to explore those avenues to protect our people, to shield our state, to secure our state and people.
Right. So there are a couple of states, right, where situations like this have become common, just like Plateau State. Case in point, Benue State. Case in point, Adamawa. Even as far north as Sokoto or Katsina, for instance. And those states, you know, some of them have been able to turn a corner with regards to this particular development. You know, we can talk about Adamawa, for instance. And the solution was not a military one. The solution was one of, you know, the non-kinetic approach, the political approach, the socio-economic approach, where, you know, these warring factions have had to come together and, you know, deal with the situation as the case may be. And both have death tolls on their sides. Everybody can point to one wrong or the other that has been done to them. In Plateau State, one of the recent cases was the murder of Ardo Panyam, and I'm sure you can relate to that. And some of the you know, communities, or the Fulani communities, have also pointed at it and say, listen, see, this is one age old man who was, you know, killed for no reason, simply because of the fact that he's Fulani. So looking at the complexity of the situation, so we don't have, you know, a twisted understanding of how committed the state government is to addressing, you know, this particular situation. away from just happing down on the military approach, the kinetic approach, how committed are you really? And what can you point to some of those engagements that would suggest that the government is not just trying to, find peace through the gun, but also trying to put your eggs in all of these baskets that can guarantee some sort of solution to all of these, skirmishes and killings that have come to characterize Plateau State over the years? Because if you say that their goal is to just, get rid of your happiness every time you're happy, they see that you're happy, they see that you're smiling, and they come and attack. Some would say that's an oversimplification of the situation. We know that resources are at the heart of this issue, and that for some people is one of the things that the government needs to work out, how to address the limited resources that both communities are fighting over. What do you have to say about that?
You don't fight over what is not yours. You fight over what is yours that has been taken. So we've not taken anybody's same stuff. And when you say it is oversimplification, when the people think that is why they get killed, whereas the government, we must share with what they feel. And again, we sympathize with the killing of Ardo. There was a press statement released by the governor, and we gave logistics, and the killers of the Ardo, if you know, have been arrested. And when you say it is because Ardo was killed, maybe that is the information you have or the intelligence you have. We've not been told that that is the reason. Those that killed the Ardo did the disaster act. We condemn it in all its entirety. We do not subscribe to such a thing. Every life on the Plateau matters, whether it is Ardo or a small child of 3 months or me or any other person that lives on the Plateau. So long as you belong to the geographical expression called Plateau, your life matters, and we don't want anybody to take it. And like I have told you, the non-kinetic moves we've taken. I've told you that we've had consultations, we've had meetings with persons, we've spoken to gatekeepers, we've spoken to persons that can speak to people. And I had said earlier on that it's not everything that you bring to the public domain. We have a government that is peaceful, a government that understands what it means to have a peaceful environment so that you develop it. And that is what we've been coveting for. That's what we've been working for. And lo and behold, on Christmas Eve, our assailants attacked. Those that attacked us, we didn't have anything that belongs to them. We've not taken anything that belongs to them. And if I want to be petty, Panyam is a Mangu local government. These attacks happen in Bokos and in Barikila, the local government. There are measures that can be taken to curtail these killings. So when your brother is killed, there is the law there. But when you take the law into your hands, is that an excuse? How many persons were killed that you are now reprising? If that is the case, if you say that is the case. But I think it is just annihilation, it is just genocide, it is land grabbing, and it is not anything outside of this.
Right. Honorable, just a point of correction. I wasn't trying to make a connection between what happened in Panyam to what is happening right now in Bokos and Barikilade. I was just pointing out, I said, by saying that, both communities can point to and say, oh, look what they have done to us. And that's why I pointed that particular incident out, and not to say that there is a connection between the two separate, attacks. But, moving forward, looking at what is happening right now, what is the state government's, posture on the way forward? Obviously, away from, making public pleas and, putting a spotlight on what is happening going forward. What can the people on the Plateau expect from their government as part of a proactive measure? Because the criticism has come the way of your principal by saying, listen, most Nigerians didn't know about the 5 years occupation of some of these schools until this happened. So it means that perhaps the state government could have done a lot more if they shared this intelligence with the authorities and nothing was done. They could have, come to the public and say, listen, this is the keg of gunpowder that we're sitting on, and should something happen, we're trying to draw the attention of the public that, this is the information that we have, not after the fact. So what can the people realistically expect from their government going forward as part of a proactive measure to forestall further occurrences of events like this?
Today is the 27th of December 2023, and we took over power or governance on the 29th of May 2023. So it tells you that we're less than 7 months in power, 8 months. When we give references to 5 years, it means somebody was in charge. You never heard from the last government. But because we want to have a solution, a permanent one to it, that's why we're drawing the attention of the world. And, when there is peace, you cannot be shouting about lack of it. It is when there is no peace that you begin to say, okay, these are likely the issues. And when our people get killed, my brother, sometimes if you go to these communities, all these issues of saying you need to sit down with this person and sit down with that person, like the 3-month-old babies, who will they sit down with? The 8-month-old baby, who will they sit down with? What has happened to them is that they want to take away their lives. And when they have this mental scan, they grow with it. You never can tell how they will respond and react to these issues when being told what happened to them in the past. So let's not be breeding gangsterism. Let's not allow people to kill and they will come to the media space to try to justify why they killed. There's no justification for taking anybody's life, whether be it a Bardo or be it a small child. As a government, we have told the world that we have had communities that have been taken over. This is not the first time. When people get killed, if you go to archives where communities are interviewed, they will tell you that their lands have been taken away from them. When you go to archives in the other TV stations, I don't know whether your reporter too has it, you will see that women, children, and people that have left their communities.
Your mic is off again, Commissioner.
All right, we seem to be having an on and off with the Honorable Commissioner. Can you hear me, Commissioner?
Yes, it's people from our communities that have been killed that kept calling us to give us information. That's why it is interfering with the interview.
Oh, okay. We understand what difficult situation you are in, especially at a time like this. Just before we let you go, I'm sure our viewers would like to get updates on from you concerning those who have been displaced. We've talked so much about the departed, and God's rest their soul, but some reports put it at between 6,000 and 10,000 persons that have been displaced as a result of this crisis, who now require shelter or some kind of temporary camp. Can you bring us to speed with regards to what the state government is doing to provide momentary comfort or shelter, as the case may be, especially given this season where the plains are actually very cold?
Yeah, in our state, people hardly sit at the internally displaced in camps. They feel it's demeaning, and we always stand in for our brothers and sisters. Sometimes because the houses they occupy, they cannot get food because they are overstretching the families accommodating them. They can come to the IDP center or any center that is given to them, so they feed themselves and get the goodies that comes from government before going back to those homes. And like yesterday in Barkin-Ladi, the Regional Church Council of the Church of Christ in Nations is boosting some of them. And we were there with NEMA and SEMA, with the state government, and we've taken note of all the things that they are missing, and we need to come in and save the situation before it escalates. Like you said, our weather is very, very cold in this season. So we're producing things that will make them feel comfortable for the meantime, even though when you lose your loved one, there's nothing you can do to make the person feel comfortable. Sometimes it's a scary and gory situation. So yeah, today, by the grace of God, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria will be having an on-the-spot assessment, and we hope that we'll bring them back to their communities, provide them shelter in their communities. So we're not going to give them noodles, we're not going to give them temporary things that will evaporate within hours, because this has happened, and there's nothing you can even do to the person for him to remain the same again. But we'll try as a government to make sure that they get a post-traumatic therapy, because a lot of them, if there's a pastor whose leg is swollen because he tried to make people escape, so he has a lot of thorns piercing through his legs, and a lot of situations like that, very pitiable. So we are hoping as a government that will step in and help them get over this traumatic situation.
Right. Honorable Commissioner, we're going to have to leave it here because we understand you're going to have a very busy day. Unfortunately, you don't get to enjoy your holidays as most people usually do during this time of the period because of the tragic developments in Plateau State. But thank you most kindly for sparing your time and for joining us this morning on Daybreak. Thank you very much for joining us. And we do hope we hear a lot more positive developments in the days to come.
Thank you.
Right. Okay, that was Musa Shoms, Commissioner for Information and Communications for the Plateau State Government. Just giving us insights on what has been a very tragic and debilitating situation, especially for those 23 plus villages across Bokos and Barikiladi, which is very telling of the spread and the scale of this devastation.
Yeah, what can we say? The situation is even more appalling if you get the opportunity to see some of the gory images, that seem to have emanated from that place. The best the government can do right now is to just provide momentary relief, as he said, and hopefully we get to see actions in the direction of post-traumatic management, which is one area where we don't do very well as far as this country is concerned. We will be taking the conversations in a different direction. This time we will be talking to a conflict resolution expert, Dr. Yakubu Joseph, who is the country director, Mission 21. He's a peace practitioner and a researcher. After this break.
The conversation has been on the killings on the Plateau over the past couple of days. It's been a very disturbing development where the Christmas festivities were overshadowed by the killings across Bokos and Barikin Ladi local government areas of the state. Some 23 villages came under attack, where 100 plus people have been killed so far, as the government at state and national level are trying to get ahead of the situation to perhaps lower the temperature and guarantee the observance of law and order in those areas. We had initially planned to talk to Dr. Yakubu, who is a conflict resolution expert and researcher, the country director of Mission 21. Apparently, we're having some challenges connecting with. Do we have Dr. Yakubu on the? Okay. Okay.
Yes, I'm here.
Dr. Yakubu. Doctor, thank you very much for joining us on the program. Be interesting to hear from you what you make of the challenges that Plateau State is facing right now. It's over 2 decades now. It's a recurring phenomena, year in, year out. These type of developments go into the history books. What are your thoughts about the cause and the persistent, attacks that we see year in, year out?
It's quite a tragedy. Really sad what happened the past couple of days. And this is a recurrent episode here on the Plateau, happening from one local government to the other. And now in the past few months, we have seen repeatedly this violence taking place around Bokos, Mangu, and the fringes of Barikiladi. Now, this issue must be looked at within the context of Plateau State and Nigeria as a whole. Plateau State has witnessed vicious cycle of violence, as you have rightly said, for over 2 decades. And the violence has seems unabated. Many efforts have been put in place to try to address and stem these tides of violence, but it will just stay calm for a while and come back again. And we're talking about the level of killing that we are seeing is something that is unprecedented. It's a level of cruelty, I would say a descent to anarchy, or what I would even characterize as something that is not common. You don't expect human beings to be able to carry out this level of heinous acts. And we are seeing this happening. Why is it happening repeatedly in Plateau State? First, I would say that there are issues. One of the things we have seen in our research is that trauma has become one of the drivers of this violence. People that are affected by an act of violence and they are suffering from the trauma have angst and bitterness and the desire to avenge for what has happened to them is strong unless something is done. And I will bring squarely here the question of justice. We need to look at justice in threefold. We need punitive justice where perpetrators are apprehended and they are brought to justice and they serve the punishment that they deserve for carrying out these acts. So far, the state has, when I talk about the state, I'm talking about the Nigerian state, has not demonstrated the capacity to apprehend people who perpetrate this act of violence and bring them to book. And that is why we are seeing the climate of impunity is persisting. And also we need to look at the need for restorative justice. People that are affected by this violence, even if you serve punitive measures against those who carry out these acts of violence, it does not address the needs of the victims, the survivors. They have a need to regain their dignity. They have a need for psychosocial support. They have a need for rehabilitation. And that is what restorative justice is conversing for. And we need to come to terms with the reality that when there is an act of violence, it is not just an infraction. It's not just that the law has been broken, but it has also caused damage to people psychologically, economically, even lives have been lost. And those affected need some kind of reparation. They need some kind of support to be able to heal and to also come to terms with what has happened to them.
All right, Doctor.
The third element of justice is what I call transformative justice. We need to address the underlying causes of this violence. Now, this is very complicated in the case of Plateau State. Historic animosity between different ethnic groups in Nigeria is something that we as a federal state must rise up and address. Look at every election cycle. Look at the narratives. Look at the rhetorics that people say. And as if we are not from the same country, as if we are not the same people. This kind of narratives that you see even during politicking is a manifestation of the deep-rooted divisiveness that exists among our people. And our leaders, the ethnic leaders, the religious leaders, the community leaders, must become glues and not solvent. They must become glue and not solvent for national unity. But on the contrary, they are solvent for national unity. What they keep saying is to divide people. Every community leader, every religious leader, he's championing what is on his side and not looking at the other people. There is complete lack of analytic empathy when we engage with these issues. We take away the right of the other person. It is our own narrative. It's our own truth that is the truth. And this is dangerous. By doing that, we are stripping the other people of their humanity.
All right, Doctor,
and what I see happening in Plateau State is that this is something that we are all together in this. Whether you are Fulani, or you are Birom, or you are from you are Maga.
I like the fact that you said we are in this together, and that you have anchored some of your findings and suggestions on some of the research that you have conducted. So we basically are going to be speaking to facts as the case may be. Earlier on, we had the Commissioner of Information, basically espousing the position of government as far as this crisis are concerned. From your standpoint, and engagement, basically both with state actors and members of the community. Does it appear that we have a complete understanding of what these issues are and what we need to do going forward, especially with regards to peace building? Rather than just stand in one point and pause accusing fingers at the others, do we sufficiently have the understanding that we have a common destiny as a people, and that we will continue to coexist for a long time, and what is best is find a solution that works for everybody rather than continue to point accusing fingers and referring to your place in history and why your argument should be superior to the other person's?
No, I don't think that we are there yet. It's normal for people to have an approach, a position on this conflict, stating their own understanding of what has happened, and also defining the conflict in their own way. And this is a starting point for if we are going to have a transformation of this conflict, we have to engage with these antagonistic and divergent views that you have subjective understanding or definitions of the conflict, and find a way to bring these people, the parties, to a common ground so that we can have an intersubjective understanding of what has happened. By intersubjective understanding of the conflict, I mean that we are able to understand the conflict from also the other party's perspective. And the danger is if we do not look at the conflict also from the other party's perspective, we end up demonizing and also coming up with blanket generalization like the other people are bad people, and that we are human beings, we are all God's children. But you know what? What happened on the eve of Christmas in Plateau State is what I characterize as 100% unadulterated evil. And this is how every Nigerian should look at this matter. It's not about a particular ethnic group doing something wrong. It's not about this. Now, the question, you see, when there is anger, I spent 1 hour yesterday weeping when I saw some of the videos. The question is, when they take the identity of the victims away, how do you feel? Or when the victims also belong to the other identity, how do you feel? Do you have a feeling of empathy for the persons? When it happens to them, does it catch your attention? The tragedy that we are dealing with in this country is that, and as you see, as the nature of our politics has always also been, is that we're also too preoccupied with something that concerns us, and we have an exclusive approach to issues because we feel we don't see it from the other person's perspective. And that is part of the problem. In a normal situation, what has happened here and what has happened in Zamfara, what has happened in Kaduna, what has happened in Benue should bring the country together. We will see a bipartisan or multi-partisan approach to the issue. But now what you have is that whenever this episode or events happen, violent events happen, you have people coming and talking about their pains. So the role here, I will give the responsibility to the federal government. The federal government has to do enough. The kinetic approach to the issue is not enough. We do indeed need security. And I believe that the security measures that have been put in place are not adequate. The troops are doing their best. I give it to them. Unfortunately, the matter is getting out of hand. They are dealing with the South. The West is breaking. They are dealing with the West. The East is breaking. They are dealing with the East. The South is breaking. And so the military is getting overwhelmed. But they also have to have a more systematic approach to the issues. One of the things that the military has to do more is intelligence. In the area of intelligence gathering, you cannot parachute to gather intelligence. You need to maintain presence in the communities, in the villages. Our intelligence grid must extend and cover the entire country. Every village, every community must be covered. And how do you do that? You need interagency collaboration. The civil defense are there, the police are there, and other paramilitary agencies are there, as well as also what we have seen, the growing number of non-state actors that have organized themselves into vigilantes. How do you need to engage with them to gather security, to gather intelligence. You also work closely with the communities, because I have the belief that what is happening in Plateau is also partly what is from there are some elements of banditry going on, because the Fulani community and the other ethnic groups had lived side by side peacefully for many years, and they still get along. They are here in Jos. You will see the Fulani are coming in to do their business. They live together, they interact, they have business. So, I believe that we need to also interrogate who are these so-called assailants. Right. In around 2010, when we started this study, they were being referred to as unknown gunmen. And gradually we're trying to lift the marks and see, and we are calling them assailants. And, that is also for me part of the way for us to lose track of who is actually carrying out this act of violence. Doctor, and then there is also, just to over time, because what you have is that you lose.
I would love to get your take on how best, Doctor, we could break this circle of violence, right? Because I think that is what is the most important in this conversation. I mean, we are well aware of the history of the violence, not just in the Plateau, but as you stated, the growing concerns across different parts of this country. Nigeria is inundated with a lot of security challenges. But how do we go about breaking this cycle of violence, especially when you have spoilers like the criminal elements that you just mentioned, who are very good, as the case may be, at stoking violence, at disrupting the volatile peace that we have across some of these flashpoints. How do we do that? Because, everything looks muddied up from a certain vantage point.
Okay, just quickly, Doctor, as you try to round up your thoughts on this, just so that we better manage time, I need to know, you talked about the need to have a hand on the situation. Are you looking at an external intervention or a Plateau solution? How do we go about, assembling, that nexus that would enable us, begin to take control of the narrative?
I would say that first, at this present moment, what we need is the security efforts to stop the violence from spreading. That is the immediate need. And then humanitarian efforts also side by side with that effort to reach people that have been affected, the injured, those that are grieving, to reach them with psychosocial support, and those that have been displaced to see that they have a place to lay their heads. I tell you, about 6 a.m. when I checked the temperature here in Jos, it was 13 degrees Celsius. And that's pretty cool if you are not having good insulation. So this is really also another issue. We don't want to have complex emergency on our hand if people are quite getting sick. Then, this typically when this act of violence happen, the military comes in, government will intervene to restore what they call normalcy. I'm not sure that is the right word to say normalcy. And then we go to sleep until it happens again. What I would advise is that after the violence has stopped, that is the point when the real work should start. And so the real work now, what we have is in immediate aftermath of the violence, what do we need to have in place? Humanitarian efforts are going on, and to make sure that also there are no reprisals here and there. On the medium time, we need to bring also leaders. It's not going to be just a plateau solution. I tell you, this is one of the challenges of the federal government, of the Nigerian state as a federation. The federal government has to step in. We have to leverage also different stakeholders' capacities, like the different religious organization, Christian Association of Nigeria, Jamaat al-Nasr Islam. We need to bring the Miyetti Allah. We need to bring also the other ethnic groups, associations and platforms, so they can step in, reach out and talk to their people, talk to the people, and try to create that readiness to engage in a conversation. And then on the long run, government should look at what are those underlying causes, or these root causes of this conflict. Historic grievances are there. And these historic grievances, I tell you, they are nothing but they are things that are supposed to be passed. They are just the way that we tell history about each other. So inter-ethnic and inter-religious relations is characterized by this kind of attitude of animosity that we see. So we need to have ongoing work. NAREC was doing a very good job. And I believe that the federal government should give NAREC all the resources it needs to come into situations like this, because they are close, the religious leaders are close to the people at the grassroots, to engage with these people and begin to talk. And we need to also put in place processes of healing and reconciliation, element of restorative justice that can make people really heal from what has happened. There are conflicts that happened 50 years ago, and they are still there. The sky is still here. And so if you don't address the anger that people have, if you don't address the trauma that people have, we are now allowing this sleeping volcano to what? Erupt in the future. Right. And is going to continue to destabilize our communities. Okay. Therefore, I would like to see the federal government deploying the Institute of Peace and Conflict Resolution here to Plateau State. They have experts. They have done a lot of studies, peace and conflict impact assessment. This is one agency created by the Obasanjo administration. I don't know what this agency is doing. At one time, it was under the Ministry of Integration, another time, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, because we still don't even understand what the agency is supposed to be doing. Right. The Institute of Peace and Conflict Resolution has a lot of work to do.
Thank you very much.
There is no need for, it doesn't make sense for us to be paying salaries and keeping that agency there, and then we have situation like this, and they are not involved, active on the ground, and in fact leading efforts to bring about to bring the parties together, to have some kind of conciliation initiatives instituted. So I believe the federal government has a role to play. And then there has been also
getting your thoughts on some of these issues and how best we can navigate it. The big question is, do we have the necessary tools, resources to address all of these questions? And I think most Nigerians will say, yes, we do have the resources, but are we deploying them to the best of our ability? And I think the answer is most likely going to be a resounding no. But we're going to have to pin it here for now.
That's
Dr.
right.
Yakubu, thank you most kindly for your thoughts, for your analysis, and we sympathize with you for any loss that you're connected to regarding the current unrest in the Plateau. Thank you most kindly for joining us on Daybreak this morning.
Thank you.
Right. Let's make progress now. Take a quick break. When we come back, we'll bring you up to speed with some of the headlines across some select national dailies this morning. Daybreak returns with newspaper review. Stay with us.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, it's Daybreak on Trust Television, and we are just coming out from what appears to be a frank talk, if you like, on the situation in Plateau and the need for us to make progress, to give peace a chance. And our speakers have tried to explore, various options at various alternatives to what we are already doing, especially in the areas of non-kinetic solution. This time, we'll be looking at what the front pages are saying from select newspapers this morning. And as is a tradition, we would begin with the Daily Trust. The Daily Trust is staying with the incidents in the Plateau. Outrage over Plateau massacre as death toll hits 155. Northern elders question military capacity and urges change of tactics. Terrorists occupying 64 communities in Plateau, Mafwang, and that's the governor. Smoke out attackers, tinubu orders security agencies. And farming communities, Miyeti Allah trade blames over killings. You'll find the details of this on pages for...
The same runaround.
Yeah.
The same runaround.
Absolutely. The details are there on pages 4 and 6, I think. Yeah, moving on to other story. Tudimbini finds unity in Christmas celebration amidst mourning. 2023, how fast data depletion and bad network slows 5G dominated Nigeria telecom sector. I mean,
we can talk about bad data or bad network every day of the year.
It's crazy.
And it's not improving.
And
I wonder why the NCC is, barely even giving these telecom providers a slap on the wrist. Because we need to do a lot more to keep them honest, to keep them, so customers get value for money.
I can't tell you
the drop calls
that there is anything significant about my data experience or telecom experience different from what it used to be before the advent of 5G. We hear about the Internet of Things in other places. That's not exactly happening. You can barely hold down a 5-minute call here. Moving on to other stories. Police nab 18-year-old female student who worked as bandit informant. To other stories, pipeline explosion kills 20 persons in rivers. Smugglers forfeit 3 billion vehicles in 9 months, despite buy. And hackers stole $2 billion, if you like, in the case of Nigeria, 2 trillion naira worth of cryptocurrencies in 2023. These are the reasons why sovereign governments are very afraid.
What are your thoughts about CBN readmitting or its position on cryptocurrency?
It makes you shivers. Well, not exactly a wrong move, because you don't want to leave these guys completely out of your purview. You want to be able to have an oversight on what they do, and
have
the only way to do that
and regulate
is to draw them a bit closer. But how they are going to stitch those controls around what these guys do is what we do not understand as of yet. But we hope that they have an idea of what they do, because what's happening clearly is that regulation is chasing innovation
exactly.
in this case.
But isn't that always the case, though?
Well,
you innovate something and you find a way to regulate it. Control it.
Traders lose millions as fire raises Kano market. We had that as part of our reports earlier. Very pathetic situation there from Kano.
Exactly.
And that's it on the front page of the Daily Trust.
The Punch is up next. Let's take a look at the front page of the Punch newspaper for today, December 27. President meets governors, seeks stronger federal government states collaboration. And Nigeria's diaspora remittances will exceed $20 billion or will exceed $20 billion in 2023. I think 2023 is almost a wrap.
I mean, we've been at this $20 billion for so long. You think that's a no-brainer.
Well, I mean, shouldn't we have some sort of figure already? Because the year is almost up.
Basically, we're just counting days or hours.
Do we have to wait until the first quarter of next year to get a sense of
we should
how
be
much
getting those figures now? Yeah.
Okay. According to the World Bank, that is, National Assembly reconvenes Friday to pass budget December 30th. So it seems like they're on course to do what they plan to do. The big story, of course, is on the Plateau killings or massacre outrage, as Plateau massacre claims 150 over 10,000 displaced. Look at the similarity between the headlines on the Punch newspaper and the Daily Trust. It's almost the same thing, except for the numbers. Outrage over the Plateau massacre. And some of the writers say, I lost my father, 10 other family members to attack. Just photographer laments. Now, these are the consequences of attacks like this. This is how disruptive it can be. You can imagine that individual's life would never be the same ever again going forward. And this is the cost of such carnage at this scale. President orders killers arrest. Can Northern Governors, elders, Saraki condemn attacks? Why is Saraki separate from other people? Well, anyway, maybe he gets a special mention because of his status as a former Senate president.
Yeah.
You can see some of the pictures there, and some of them are just too graphic to show. But you can see a picture of one of the survivors with some injuries to her hands, and you can see, properties being burned down. This was just 2 days before Christmas. Some of it just on Christmas Day, some of it on the eve of Christmas, and it's just a very heart-wrenching story. Federal government plans fresh regulations for OPay, MoneyPoint, and others. Okay, I hope stories like this doesn't send users into a frenzy, because the moment you hear regulations, you begin to wonder, is my money safe? And I think it's not fair on some of these operators, because they seem to be some of these fintech,
and the reason why some of the banks are sitting up.
Exactly, and I think that stories like this tend to put them in a bad situation where all of a sudden you get to worry, is my money safe? And the moment customers begin to worry like that, you lose business.
That's right.
And even though regulation is a welcome development, as long as it does not stifle the growth of some of these businesses. 25 killed in Rivers illegal refinery explosion. So I guess it's connected with that story about the pipeline explosion. 300 Nigerians killed in foreign lands. Blood cries endlessly for justice. And that is it on the front page of the Punch newspaper.
All right, moving on to the Sun newspaper this morning. Slightly away from the other two. The major story here says power struggle in PDP intensifies. With the riders, Atiku's men, new generation members fight for control. Supreme Court cases stall search for IU's replacement. An opposition party may hold mini convention in February. So much happening in the PDP. They don't seem to have recovered from the shock of the last election.
No, I don't think it's right from the G7 governors back in 2014.
That's right.
PDP has never been the same again.
Never.
And they need to do some soul searching, reorganize themselves, and because we need a viable opposition party.
And basically some flushing out.
Yeah.
They are guilty of some of the accusations
they need to purge. They need to be honest with themselves, be transparent, and hold themselves accountable, because without accountability, they're going to repeat the same mistakes over and over again.
Absolutely.
Maybe they owe former President Goodluck Jonathan an apology also. Who knows?
All right, I hope they are listening. That's free consultations from Abdul coming out this morning. To other stories, President to Fabura, thank you for peaceful resolution of the political crisis in Rivers. I hope we have seen the end of those crises, as it were. I saw footages of Wike in Rivers, showing up at some party ground where he had a dig and took chairs from...
it seemed that he's relentless with his attacks on Rivers elders and what's happening in Rivers State. But the governor came out just days ago and said, listen, he's committed to implementing the resolutions of the peace accord or peace deal negotiated by President Bola Tinubu, even though we understand that the PDP in Rivers State are not particularly happy with the governor's body language.
That's right.
So
some have
Governor
described
Fubara
it as throwing everybody under the bus.
Yeah, he's trading on the very,
Yeah. And similar to some of the stories we have read from other papers, Tinubu, northern governors, senators, Khan, Saraki, Obi furious over Christmas Eve attack in Plateau as death toll rises. How attackers killed 157, ransacked 12 villages, razed 221 houses, 27 motorcycles, 8 vehicles. This is coming from Lubo, Kant chairman. And the Northern Governors Forum calls for increased security measures. To other stories, Ohaneze tax Southeast governors on security. 6 died, 65 injured in Boxing Day auto accidents in Lagos and Kaduna. And police confirm rise in killings, death of inspector in Edo court clashes. And to other stories, 8 arrested over murder of Enugu monarch on Christmas Eve. Those are the stories on the front page of the Daily Sun.
This Day is up next. Let's take a look at the front page of the This Day newspaper for today. Murphy set to track Nigeria's real estate, solid minerals, oil and gas assets globally. Upbeat assets under management will surpass 100 billion naira target. Just realize that this is, a story about a setup that is trying to scale up its asset under management. So good for them. In other news, Okpeyemi Bamidele, National Assembly will pass 2024 appropriation bill on Saturday. Says federal government will go after economic saboteurs next year. So they get a pass this year, or we're not catching them this year until next year. Okay. Incensed by Plateau Xmas Eve carnage, Tinubu orders security to go after killers. I don't think this is the story. If you ask me, the story is about the death toll, the story is about what has happened, not the reaction to it. But anyway, you get some of the details in the riders. It says, tells governors, nation's peace, stability is collective responsibility. Motwan says, it's disheartening losing lives to senseless, unprovoked attacks. Northern Governors Forum, Northern leaders, Khan, Abbas, Obi, Amnesty International, others mourn, condemn incident. Police put death toll at over 79, says it's over, observers say it's over 140. I think this day is catching up, it's playing catch up with the figures. It's a lot more than that. And you can see the president there with a grand smile on his face, and then with the governor's visit to the president in his residence in Lagos yesterday. So let's just quickly highlight some of the stories then and perhaps banter on it. Mr. Ben Sherman has decided to abandon us today, and I guess he will have some explanation to do next week when he shows up for the newspaper review. But in talking about, the whole Plateau attacks, the killings, the massacre, it goes without saying that you expect there to for us to be in national mourning, so to say, but we've seen so many cases like this come and go without the usual outrage. I mean, there's outrage on the papers, on the posts of political leaders, on their social media platforms, but one would say, listen, there was no outrage when there was Tudumbiri, there was no outrage years ago when other situations happened. Do you get a sense that we're normalizing developments like this? So much to say that, it doesn't unsettle us when things like this happen. Yes, we're angry, but we're unable to show it in a way that really counts.
Absolutely. And the optics are there for us, to see from the way the government had reacted to it. It's the usual statements. The wordings are not even changing. From the way the president, personally has reacted to it in the midst of what is happening, you are seeing some kind of solidarity visit to the president, and they have to celebrate it on the front, on the pages of the newspaper or in the media, and you begin to ask yourself, what is even the relevance, of those kind of visits? In the
at
face
a time
of,
like this,
the face of
the visit was yesterday, right?
Yeah,
yesterday was Tuesday.
That would be the third day of the attack.
Exactly.
You would have thought that with an attack, I mean, with what we are seeing in Gaza, and that is not to minimize the humanitarian situation in Gaza. You don't get this kind of loss of life within that space of time in a non-conflict environment. It's not a warring environment as as the case may be. You know, so it betrays everything that we should stand for. It shows clearly that we have normalized it. I got the call from a number of friends from outside this country yesterday who were worried about the escalating attacks and the sheer number of deaths. And they were surprised that talking to me, I did not sound as outraged as they are. You know, and I had to do a reflection myself, and I said, why am I finding it difficult, to be triggered, the way it would be those days when you get any of this stuff? It's because of the way we have treated the previous attacks and sort of normalized these attacks. We try to explain them away. You heard the Deputy Minister of Defense or Minister of State for Defense, whichever one is that nomenclature. You heard the Vice President when they showed up before the victims of the last military shelling to say it is an act of God, it was predestined to happen, and we should just take it like that. And basically explains the way.
And developments like this numb us to a point where you get a sense, it's not just normalization, an acceptance, if you will, of this sort of anomaly, that this is now part of our everyday life now. It is almost expected. I dare say it is almost expected that something bad is going to happen, and that's just life in Nigeria. And I must say that we have lowered the bar so low to a point where people in power can escape accountability by giving us excuses, like giving directives after much damage has been done, when we do know that the standard operating procedure is for the police, for the military, and every other security agency out there to work around the clock to prevent situations like this from happening. And if they do happen, the only acceptable narrative is we have apprehended the perpetrators and we're going to prosecute them so that it will serve as not just justice to those who have been wronged, but also as a deterrent, so that people know that when you commit heinous crimes like this in Nigeria, it is not going to go unpunished. But what we've seen over the years is that people do this on a regular basis, and they get the feeling that they can get away with it, and unfortunately, that is what we see happen over and over year in.
Another aspect of all of the attacks is how badly we have treated victims in this country. Starting from the train attack. Well, there had been several attacks before those, of how families have to sell everything to basically meet the ransom of family members, and some of them had to lose their jobs, haven't stayed away for so long, and all of that. And when their these family members returned, I'm talking about the kidnapped victims, they were led to their fate. No trauma counseling was available to them, and all of that. We saw the military trauma. Killing. So it just like one of the experts said, so you build up that resentment against the state. It has never been there for you, and neither provide institutions that sort of help you heal from this trauma. It's something we have to improve, starting with what's happening in Plateau, so that we can heal from the past. That's the much that we can bring to you this morning. I hope we have been able to provide you some education, some entertainment, and of course some information useful to enable you, have a very fantastic day. I am Sunday Michael Ogu. Let's do this again tomorrow.
I'm pretty sure there was zero entertainment value in the conversations today. There were some very honest and insightful conversations though. But thank you very much, as always, for your time and company. Daybreak returns tomorrow live at 8. My name is Abdullahi Ahmed. Good morning.